Imagine yourself in a place where time seems to be in no hurry, where the Himalayan mountains hold secrets that few have dared to reveal. Bhutan, a country nestled among giants, remains isolated from the modern world, keeping intact a culture as rich as it is mysterious. Few know, but this isolation is a deliberate choice, an attempt to preserve what many call the true essence of happiness. But does this mystery go beyond what we see at first glance? Curiosity about countries like Bhutan only grows, and there is much more to it than the stunning landscapes. In the heart of these mountains, life follows a different rhythm. While the world gets lost in the rush, Bhutan has found a way to measure its success in a unique way. This is a place where economic growth is not the top priority. Instead, the happiness of his people comes first. They have a secret that many countries have not yet discovered: gross national happiness. What if you could apply this to your life? If you measured your success not by what you accumulate, but by how you really feel? Distance from the modern world has its pros and cons. On the one hand, Bhutan protects itself from the cultural pollution that devastates traditions elsewhere. On the other hand, staying away can also be a constant challenge. And yet, they persist, maintaining a deep connection to their roots. This country's curiosity stands out for this choice, for this silent resistance to globalization that, for many, seems inevitable. Isolation also protects a special secret. There are those who say that Bhutan discovered something that the rest of the world is still looking for: a perfect balance between tradition and modernity. However, to what extent will this balance be maintained? And how does the country adapt to inevitable changes? It's a mystery that only deepens as we explore deeper into its culture, its history, and the way it sees the world. In a world where success is measured by gross domestic product, Bhutan has chosen to follow a different path. At the center of its philosophy is the concept of gross national happiness, GNH, an index that values collective well-being above all else. Imagine living in a place where the government cares not only about economic growth, but also about your happiness. GNH emerged as a radical alternative, changing the way Bhutan views development. What if other countries adopted this vision? Perhaps it was the beginning of a silent revolution. The implementation of GNH directly impacts the lives of Bhutanese people. They measure progress in terms of well-being, work-life balance, and spiritual connection. All of this is reflected in public policies aimed at mental health, education, and environmental preservation. In this system, what you do matters, but what matters most is how it impacts your well-being. This curiosity about countries like Bhutan makes us question: are we measuring our progress in the right way? When comparing GNH with gross domestic product, GDP, the difference is stark. While GDP focuses on the production and accumulation of wealth, GNH goes further, promoting a life in harmony. Imagine a world where, instead of accumulating more, the priority was to live better. Bhutan shows us that it is possible to prosper in a way that many countries still ignore, balancing tradition and modernity. Wouldn't that be the secret to a fuller life? But GNH is not just a theoretical concept. It is felt on the skin. Every policy, every government decision is designed to preserve collective happiness. However, this brings the challenge of maintaining this balance in an increasingly globalized and connected world. Can Bhutan maintain this philosophy while the rest of the world moves in another direction? It's something that leads us to reflect on the future of this small country. And, who knows, the world. Bhutan lived under an absolute monarchy for much of its history, but what few know is that the democratization process was started by the king himself. It is not common to see a monarch giving up their powers voluntarily, but that is what happened at the beginning of the 21st century. The curiosity about countries that made this transition so peacefully is immense, as Bhutan teaches us that structural changes can be made without conflict. Imagine what it would be like if other countries followed this example of a smooth transition. The king's abdication in favor of a controlled democracy was an unexpected move. He recognized that Bhutan's future depended on a more open and participatory system, without leaving traditional values aside. This balance between tradition and modernity is a trademark of the country. The king still maintains an important symbolic role, being seen as a spiritual and cultural guide. What makes this transition an example of success is the way in which the people accepted the change without abandoning their roots. The democratization process was an essential step, but not without challenges. Creating a democratic system in a country so linked to tradition required care and planning. What if the population wasn't ready? The king believed in the potential of his people, and, little by little, Bhutan learned to deal with this new political reality. The balance between a monarchy that still inspires and a democracy that governs has become the pillar of society. This country's curiosity only increases as examples of such harmonious transitions are rare. Today, Bhutan is one of the few countries where the king and parliament coexist so symbiotically. The figure of the monarch remains a guardian of culture and traditions, while the democratic government deals with the practical issues of administration. This unique governance model reflects Bhutan's ability to adapt to change without losing its essence. The future of Bhutan, however, remains an enigma, as there is still much to explore in this fusion of past and present. Buddhism is not just a religion in Bhutan, it is the soul that defines every aspect of Bhutanese life. In every corner of the country, whether in monasteries or isolated villages, Buddhism is present as a force that guides behavior, choices, and traditions. For the Bhutanese, living in harmony with the spiritual world is as essential as breathing. This spirituality shapes the way they see the world, offering a unique lens that balances the material and the immaterial. Curiosity about countries where religion plays such a central role is fascinating, and Bhutan exemplifies this like no other. Monasteries, with their prayer flags in the wind, are much more than religious symbols. They are centers of wisdom and reflection. They are meeting points between the past and the present, where young and old monks come together to share ancient teachings. The role of these monasteries goes beyond the spiritual, also influencing the political and social life of the country. And what can we learn from this? Perhaps it is the understanding that a life connected to the spiritual can bring a balance that is so lacking in the modern world. The practice of Buddhism in Bhutan is not something reserved for monks or fervent practitioners, but is part of everyone's daily life. Every gesture, every ritual, from the simple walk to the local temple, carries a deep meaning. Imagine living in a place where even daily challenges are viewed through a spiritual lens, a connection to something greater. This country's curiosity leads us to reflect on our own priorities and how we can apply this search for balance in our lives. But how does Buddhism remain so strong in an increasingly modern and globalized world? The answer lies in the way the Bhutanese people maintain their deeply rooted faith without giving up their identity. Although the country has embraced modernity in some aspects, it remains steadfast in its spiritual devotion. However, with the arrival of new external influences, the question remains: to what extent will this faith continue to guide Bhutan's future? Tourism in Bhutan is like a narrow window that only allows a partial, carefully controlled view of the country. They follow a high-value, low-impact policy, which means that not everyone can simply visit the Himalayan kingdom. This control aims to protect culture and the environment, while generating revenue for development. Curiosity about countries that restrict tourism in this way is inevitable. What if other popular destinations adopted a similar approach, limiting the number of visitors to preserve their cultural riches? By controlling the number of tourists, Bhutan ensures that its cultural heritage is not swallowed up by the masses. Unspoiled landscapes and picturesque villages remain untouched by mass tourism, which often degrades the environment and takes away the sense of authenticity. For tourists, visiting Bhutan is like discovering a secret treasure, where each experience is unique and deeply connected to the essence of the country. The high price of visiting is a barrier, but also a guarantee of exclusivity. Bhutanese culture, in turn, breathes a sigh of relief under this policy. Tourism can be a double-edged sword, bringing economic benefits but also cultural challenges. In Bhutan, tradition prevails, and visitors are encouraged to adapt to the local way of life rather than imposing their own customs. It's a reversal of what we see in many other countries, where local culture is often lost to meet the desires of tourists. This country's curiosity makes us wonder if other nations could one day follow suit. However, this strategy has its limitations. Bhutan walks a tightrope, trying to balance the need for revenue with the desire to preserve its cultural identity. With the increase in global interest in the country, will controlled tourism continue to be a sustainable policy? It's a question that leaves a mystery about Bhutan's future and how it will adapt to the pressures of modern tourism. In Bhutan, nature is not just a backdrop, but a living heritage and jealously protected. In a world where environmental devastation is a constant problem, Bhutan is moving against the trend, being one of the few carbon-negative countries. This means it absorbs more carbon than it emits. Dense forests, imposing mountains, and crystal-clear rivers make up a landscape that seems to have come out of a dream. Curiosity about countries that achieve this ecological balance is growing, and Bhutan offers a valuable lesson about how respect for nature can coexist with human development. The relationship between the Bhutanese and nature goes far beyond simple coexistence. They see the land as sacred, an extension of their spirituality and Buddhist beliefs. This respect is reflected in strict environmental policies, which include the protection of forests and the promotion of sustainable agricultural practices. Imagine living in a place where every tree and every river is seen as part of a larger web of life, and the impact of every human action is considered in depth. Perhaps, as we learn more about this curious country, we can rethink our own connection with nature. Bhutan not only preserves its nature, but makes it a pillar of its national identity. With more than 70% of its territory covered in forests, the country is at the forefront of the fight against climate change. What if other countries followed this example? Sustainability, for Bhutan, is not a trend or a marketing strategy, but a commitment to the future. This is a lesson that goes far beyond its borders and invites us to reflect on the impact of our actions on the natural world. But maintaining this harmony with nature is no easy task. With increasing demand for resources and global population growth, Bhutan faces challenges in keeping its environmental policy intact. Can this small nation continue to be a model of sustainability in a world that seems to be heading in the opposite direction? The answer to this question could define the future of Bhutan and the planet itself. Education in Bhutan is a harmonious fusion of old and new, where Buddhism forms the basis of teaching and modernity brings new horizons. For centuries, education in the country was led mainly by monks, with teachings deeply rooted in spirituality. Today, Bhutan's educational system expands beyond monasteries to embrace Western teaching. This curiosity about countries that maintain their traditions while opening up to the world is fascinating. And Bhutan offers us an example of how the balance between tradition and innovation is possible. Bhutanese schools teach not only conventional subjects, but also life lessons based on compassion, harmony, and balance. Imagine an educational system where character development is as important as technical knowledge. In Bhutan, children learn from an early age to live in peace with themselves and the environment. This country's curiosity makes us reflect on the importance of an education that not only prepares us for the job market, but also for life. With the arrival of Western education, new challenges emerged. Bhutan now finds itself at a crossroads, trying to maintain its traditions while adopting modern technologies and methods. The internet and social networks have a growing impact on young people, and the question that arises is, how to preserve the cultural essence in the face of external influences? Bhutan shows us that, even in a globalized world, it is possible to maintain cultural identity without losing progress. Education in Bhutan still faces obstacles, especially in rural areas where access to modern resources is limited. However, the country continues to seek ways to provide quality education for all without compromising its traditional values. Will Bhutan be able to maintain this delicate balance between old and new in the coming decades? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The Bhutanese education system continues to evolve, shaping the next generation of citizens. At the heart of Bhutanese society, the role of women is constantly changing. For centuries, women have played traditional roles, but Bhutan, even rooted in its traditions, is beginning to see a change in female status. Female leadership and entrepreneurship have grown in recent years, with more women assuming prominent positions in both the public and private spheres. Curiosity about countries balancing tradition and gender equality is palpable, and Bhutan offers an intriguing example of this transition. Historically, Bhutanese women have occupied a central place in the family structure, but now they are expanding their role beyond domestic responsibilities. With increasing educational opportunities and encouraging entrepreneurship, more women are becoming active forces in the country's economy. Imagine a scenario where female entrepreneurship is not only encouraged, but celebrated as a reflection of social evolution. This country's curiosity makes us think about how culture and modernity can coexist in a way that promotes equality without compromising traditional values. Despite advances, challenges still exist. Bhutan is a nation deeply tied to its culture, and gender issues can sometimes conflict with traditional norms. Even so, women continue to fight for greater representation at all levels of society. With the support of public policies that encourage gender equality, they are making significant advances, paving the way for future generations. The curiosity about how such a traditional country deals with this evolution is what makes Bhutan unique. The future for women in Bhutan looks promising, but the road ahead is still full of challenges. The balance between tradition and modernity is a fine line that the country is trying to walk, and women are at the forefront of this transformation. Will Bhutan continue to move forward on gender equality issues while keeping its cultural roots intact? It's a mystery that only time can reveal, but one thing is clear. Bhutanese women are shaping the nation's future in ways few could predict. The Bhutanese government is a unique blend of tradition and modernity, where respect for the monarchy goes hand in hand with emerging democracy. The country's governmental structure reflects this duality, with an active parliament and a monarchy that plays a symbolic but powerful role. In Bhutan, the king is still seen as an almost divine figure, a guardian of traditions, while the democratic government takes care of everyday matters. The curiosity about countries that manage to maintain this harmony between old and new is immense, and Bhutan offers a lesson in how tradition and innovation can coexist. The balance between tradition and modernity in Bhutan's government is a rare feat. Imagine a country where the king not only rules, but guides his people in spiritual and cultural matters, while Parliament makes practical decisions for the well-being of the population. This country's curiosity makes us think about how it is possible to maintain a political structure that honors the past, while adapting to the needs of the present. In Bhutan, respect for traditions is deep, but the desire for progress is not forgotten. Although the monarchy has relinquished much of its power, it continues to exert considerable influence, especially on issues relating to culture and national identity. Democratic government, in turn, deals with the changes brought about by globalization and modernization. However, this transition was not easy. The challenge is to keep the Bhutanese identity intact, while opening up to new ideas and opportunities. Can Bhutan sustain this delicate balance as it moves into the 21st century? The future of the Bhutanese government depends on its ability to preserve what is best about its tradition, while embracing the innovations needed to thrive in an ever-changing world. The monarchy and parliament form a unique partnership that guides the country along this path. But how far can this balance be maintained? Curiosity about Bhutan's political destiny makes us want to further explore this symbiotic relationship that challenges traditional political norms. The Bhutanese economy is one of the few in the world that prioritizes sustainability and well-being above unbridled growth. At the heart of this system is agriculture, which for centuries has been the basis of the country's economy. Bhutan, with its fertile soil and traditional agricultural practices, maintains a strong connection to the land. But in recent years, technology has begun to open new doors, bringing with it a faster pace of growth. The curiosity about countries that manage to reconcile tradition and economic innovation is remarkable, and Bhutan offers us a lesson on how to evolve without losing your soul. The arrival of technology has transformed the way Bhutan interacts with the world. Small businesses now have access to international markets, and the technology sector is slowly beginning to flourish. But this evolution has not come without challenges. The country, which has always prioritized balance and sustainability, now needs to find ways to integrate these innovations without compromising its core values. This curious country makes us think about how Bhutan is moving into the future, while still keeping the past present. The Bhutanese economy is also distinguished by its commitment to sustainability. While many nations seek growth at any cost, Bhutan does the opposite, seeking an economy that respects the environment and promotes well-being. Imagine a world where economic progress does not mean environmental devastation, but rather a path to a more balanced and harmonious life. Bhutan teaches us that it is possible to grow responsibly without sacrificing the future for immediate gains. However, Bhutan still faces the challenge of maintaining this balance as technology continues to expand. How to integrate technological advances without losing focus on sustainability? The answer to this question will shape the country's future. The balance between tradition and innovation is a recurring theme in Bhutan, and its economy reflects this in profound ways. Can Bhutan maintain this unique vision of progress in a world that is advancing so quickly? In Bhutan, religion and spirituality are intrinsic parts of everyday life. Buddhism guides not only personal decisions, but also political and social ones, permeating all aspects of life. Spiritual rituals, performed in monasteries and remote villages, connect the Bhutanese people with something greater, a spiritual force that transcends the material. Each ceremony, each prayer, is a bridge between the present and the divine, and this practice maintains the balance between the physical and spiritual worlds. Curiosity about countries like Bhutan is marked by an interest in how they manage to maintain this deep connection in a modern world. Buddhist rituals in Bhutan are a celebration of life and the universe. From the grandest festivals to the most intimate prayers, every spiritual moment is considered sacred. Bhutan's religious calendar is filled with festivities that mark the passage of time and the connection with the forces of nature. For the Bhutanese, participating in a ritual is an act of spiritual renewal, an opportunity to align the body, mind, and soul. This country's curiosity leads us to reflect on how practicing rituals can bring more balance and purpose to our own lives. Life in Bhutan is also marked by religious cycles that define the rhythm of the seasons and harvest. Spiritual festivals are events that bring the community together, bringing everyone to share moments of faith and unity. Imagine living in a place where spirituality is not something separate from routine, but rather a fundamental part of who you are and how you live. This connection to the spiritual is reflected in all aspects of Bhutanese society, creating an environment where inner well-being is valued as much as outer success. However, with the advancement of modernity and the introduction of new cultural influences, the question arises, to what extent will Bhutan be able to keep its spiritual rituals intact? Will globalization impact the way the Bhutanese people practice their faith? The answer to that question is something the future will reveal, but curiosity about Bhutan's spiritual strength continues to grow as the country navigates these changes. Traditional festivals in Bhutan are an explosion of colors, music, and joy, where spirituality mixes with the celebration of life. Each festival is a living manifestation of Bhutanese culture, with elaborate dances, vibrant costumes, and rituals that date back centuries of history. Festivals, like Chechu, are celebrations that go beyond faith, uniting the community around its oldest traditions. Curiosity about countries that keep their traditional festivals intact is always strong, and Bhutan is a shining example of how culture can be preserved with vitality and enthusiasm. These events are not just entertainment, but also a way to connect generations. From the youngest to the oldest, everyone participates, carrying with them the lessons and values transmitted by their ancestors. Colors and dances are deep symbols of spirituality, and the masks used during rituals have meanings that go beyond the visible. Imagine a place where parties are not just moments of fun, but also of reflection and spiritual renewal. This country's curiosity makes us question how we can bring more meaning to the celebrations of our own lives. Traditional festivals in Bhutan also serve as a bridge between the past and the present. They preserve the essence of Bhutanese culture, even amidst the changes brought about by modernity. When participating in a festival, visitors feel the vibrant energy of a people who, despite their openness to the world, never abandoned their roots. What can we learn from Bhutan? Perhaps the lesson is that modernity does not need to erase the past, but can coexist with it harmoniously. However, as tourism grows and external influences increase, the question arises, how long will Bhutan be able to preserve its traditional festivals without them losing their authenticity? Curiosity about how the country will face this tension between tradition and modernity is constant, and only time will tell how the next generations will keep these celebrations so rich in meaning alive. Bhutan, long disconnected from the outside world, saw the arrival of the Internet in 1999 as a silent revolution. Digital culture has slowly started to expand, bringing new opportunities and challenges to Bhutanese society. Young people in particular have enthusiastically embraced technology, connecting with the rest of the world in ways that were previously unimaginable. Curiosity about countries that have made this transition so cautiously is high, and Bhutan shows how digital modernity can be incorporated without losing a sense of cultural identity. Technology has brought new dynamism to the lives of Bhutanese, especially in the field of education and business. Social media and digital platforms have opened doors to the world, allowing Bhutan to share its rich culture and learn from other nations. However, the government is cautious, regulating the use of the Internet to avoid the excesses that digital globalization can bring. This country's curiosity makes us reflect on how we can take advantage of technology without becoming dependent on it, maintaining a balance between the virtual and real worlds. Young Bhutanese people are at the front line of this digital transformation, using smartphones and social media to connect with the world and express their ideas. However, this digital rise also brings with it a challenge: how to keep traditions and values alive while navigating this new era? Bhutan teaches us that it is possible to embrace modernity without giving up what really matters. Curiosity about how this small country is balancing tradition and technology only grows as it adapts to rapid global changes. Still, Bhutan's digital future remains uncertain. With the advancement of technology and increased connectivity, questions arise about the impact of this new era on cultural and spiritual preservation. Will Bhutan be able to keep its essence intact as it dives deeper into the digital world? This is a question that leaves the fate of its cultural identity open as the country continues to navigate these uncharted waters. Bhutan's traditional dances and masks are a visual and spiritual spectacle deeply rooted in the country's Buddhist beliefs. Every dance, every movement tells a story of mythical battles, gods and demons, and the struggle between good and evil. The colorful and detailed masks worn by the dancers have mystical meanings, representing protective spirits or sacred entities. Curiosity about countries that still preserve these forms of cultural expression is great, and Bhutan keeps these traditions alive, not just as art, but as a deep spiritual manifestation. Traditional dances, such as cham, are performed at festivals and religious events, serving as a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds. For the Bhutanese, these dances are not just performances, but rituals of purification and blessing. Imagine participating in a ceremony where every gesture carries centuries of meaning, and where the audience not only watches, but also connects spiritually with what is happening. This country's curiosity makes us reflect on how art and spirituality can intertwine in profound and transformative ways. Masks, in turn, are sacred and powerful elements within these dances. Each one is carved with great precision and loaded with symbolism, representing spiritual figures who protect the community. The tradition of carving and wearing these masks has been passed down from generation to generation, keeping Bhutan's cultural heritage alive. By witnessing one of these dances, the viewer is taken on a spiritual journey, where the mystical and the earthly meet. This country's curiosity makes us want to learn more about the symbolism and power of these cultural manifestations. However, as with many traditions, the challenge is keeping these dances and masks relevant to new generations in an increasingly digitalized world. Will young Bhutanese people continue to value these forms of spiritual expression, or will they be lost over time? The future of these traditions is in the hands of the next generations, and the fate of Bhutanese mysticism remains a mystery waiting to be solved. Bhutan's mountains are much more than majestic landscapes. They are sacred symbols, revered by the Bhutanese people as homes of protective spirits. For the Bhutanese, mountains represent the divine presence and are treated with the deepest respect. Expeditions that venture to the top are rare, as the belief is that the mountains must be preserved in their spiritual purity. Curiosity about countries that nurture this sacred relationship with nature is immense, and Bhutan offers a lesson in how respect for nature can be a form of spirituality. Mountains, like Jomolhari, are seen as guardians of ancient secrets. Many legends and stories surround these mountains, fueling the mysticism that surrounds Bhutan. For the Bhutanese people, climbing a sacred mountain is an act that can disturb the spirits that reside there. Over the centuries, they have learned to live in harmony with these spiritual forces, respecting their presence. Imagine living in a place where every peak is not just a geological formation, but a living being, full of power and mystery. This country's curiosity leads us to reconsider our own connection with the natural world. Respect for the mountains in Bhutan also reflects the ancient wisdom of protecting nature in its most pristine form. The belief that spirits inhabit these places helps preserve the environment, ensuring that these areas remain untouched by human intervention. In a world where the exploitation of natural resources often destroys sacred landscapes, Bhutan remains an example of how the sacred can be an ally in environmental preservation. This curiosity about the country inspires us to think about how we can apply these values in our relationship with nature. Still, as tourism grows and the country opens up more and more to the outside world, the question arises: can Bhutan keep these sacred mountains out of the reach of commercial and tourist exploitation? The future of Bhutanese mountains is closely linked to the preservation of their spiritual beliefs and practices. The fate of these spiritual gems remains a mystery, waiting to be revealed as Bhutan navigates these global changes. Traditional medicine in Bhutan is an ancient treasure, deeply rooted in spiritual practices and the use of local medicinal herbs. Based on the principles of Buddhism and influenced by Tibetan medicine, it treats the body and mind as a whole, seeking balance and harmony. Practitioners of this medicine use natural remedies such as plants and minerals, which are harvested from the country's sacred mountains and pristine forests. Curiosity about countries that keep this connection to natural healing alive is intriguing, and Bhutan reminds us that nature often offers the most powerful remedies. Traditional medicine clinics coexist with modern hospitals in Bhutan, offering the population the option to choose between Western treatments and older treatments based on centuries of wisdom. The Bhutanese healthcare system is unique in that it integrates these two approaches, respecting both traditions and advances in modern medicine. Imagine being able to see a doctor who not only prescribes medication, but also looks into your spiritual and mental well-being. This country's curiosity makes us reflect on the importance of more holistic care in our own lives. Traditional treatments go beyond curing physical illnesses, also covering spiritual rituals that help balance the body, mind, and spirit. The Bhutanese believe that many illnesses have spiritual roots, and traditional medicine seeks to cure these internal imbalances. Unlike modern medicine, which often focuses on symptoms, Bhutanese medicine works on the underlying causes of ailments. This curiosity about how the country treats health leads us to consider alternatives that go beyond conventional healing approaches. However, with the advancement of technology and the growing influence of Western medicine, the future of traditional Bhutanese medicine is uncertain. Will new generations continue to rely on ancestral practices, or will they turn completely to modern approaches? The fate of this ancient medicine is in the hands of Bhutan's future leaders and doctors, and only time will tell how these two practices will coexist. The family in Bhutan is the central pillar of society, where respect for elders and appreciation of family ties are deeply ingrained in the culture. In a world that is increasingly moving away from traditional values, Bhutan holds fast to its roots, preserving the family structure as a solid foundation for everyday life. In Bhutan, elders are seen as bearers of wisdom, and their opinions and advice are regarded with great respect. Curiosity about countries that still maintain this reverence for their elders makes us question how we could reintegrate these values into our own society. Marriage, for example, often follows traditional customs, where family-arranged unions are still common. However, Bhutan is also adapting to new times, and marriages by personal choice are becoming more frequent. This balance between ancient and modern is a trademark of Bhutan, where respect for traditions never impedes social evolution. Imagine living in a place where family is not only the emotional core, but also a guiding force for life's big decisions. This country's curiosity leads us to reflect on how we can strengthen our own family ties. As modernity advances and external influences increase, Bhutan faces challenges in keeping its family structure intact. Young people are increasingly exposed to new ideas and lifestyles, which can change traditional family dynamics. However, even in the face of these changes, Bhutanese culture continues to value the role of the family as an anchor of stability and emotional security. This curiosity about the country reminds us that even in times of change, family ties can be a safe haven. The future of family structure in Bhutan will depend on how the country deals with the influences of globalization and the new ways of life that are emerging. Will future generations continue to honor traditional values or opt for a more modern and individualistic approach? The answer to that question will determine the fate of one of Bhutan's most important traditions. Bhutan's isolation, nestled in the Himalayan mountains, has been both a blessing and a challenge. For centuries, this small nation chose to remain on the margins of the world, protecting its culture and traditions from external influences. Isolation has allowed Bhutan to preserve its spirituality, way of life, and natural environment. For many, this detachment is the key to understanding why Bhutan still maintains its unique essence. The curiosity about countries that manage to keep their traditions intact amid globalization makes us wonder if isolation would be the solution to preserving other cultures in the world. On the other hand, this same isolation brought difficulties, especially when the country began to open up to the world at the end of the 20th century. The lack of infrastructure and the need for modernization are constant challenges for Bhutan. Imagine living in a place where external influences arrive slowly, but with great impact. The country needed to quickly adapt to global changes, maintaining a delicate balance between the past and the present. This country's curiosity leads us to reflect on the advantages and disadvantages of staying away from global pressures. Isolation has also allowed Bhutan to become a rare example of environmental sustainability and gross national happiness, values that contrast with Western models of development. However, with the growing connection with the outside world, the question arises: can Bhutan maintain these ideals while adapting to the pressures of globalization? The country has shown impressive resilience, but the path forward is still uncertain. This curiosity about the country makes us question the extent to which it is possible to maintain a strong cultural identity amid globalizing forces. Over time, Bhutan will inevitably have to decide how far it wants to open up to the world. The opportunities brought by globalization are vast, but they can also threaten the very essence of what makes Bhutan so unique. Will the country continue to navigate these waters with the same care and wisdom it has shown so far? Bhutan's future remains shrouded in mystery, and this uncertainty only fuels our curiosity about how the country will deal with external pressures. Bhutanese architecture is one of the most visible and striking expressions of the country's culture, where tradition and spirituality are manifested in each building. The temples, dzongs, fortresses, and traditional houses reflect a unique style with Buddhist influences that blend harmoniously with the surrounding nature. The aesthetics of these buildings follow a strict cultural code, which keeps the Bhutanese identity preserved over the centuries. Curiosity about countries that keep their architectural traditions intact amid modernization is strong, and Bhutan shows us that it is possible to grow without losing connection with its roots. Bhutanese architecture is marked by minute details, such as ornate ceilings and intricately carved windows, which are not only decorative but also carry spiritual meanings. Each element of a traditional building is designed to be in harmony with the natural environment and Buddhist beliefs. Imagine living in a place where every house, every temple, is a reflection of the country's soul. This country's curiosity leads us to reflect on how architectural choices can strengthen a nation's cultural and spiritual identity. One of the most fascinating aspects of Bhutanese architecture is the absence of nails and screws in traditional constructions, which are assembled using fitting techniques inherited from ancestors. These ancient techniques not only preserve authentic aesthetics, but also reinforce sustainability and harmony with the environment. However, with the advancement of modernization, challenges arise in keeping these methods alive. Will future generations continue to build in accordance with these traditions, or will they give in to modern building practices? Bhutan faces a dilemma: how to maintain its traditional architecture while adapting to the needs of a growing society. Globalization brings new demands, but the country still tries to balance the preservation of its cultural aesthetics with inevitable modernization. The future of Bhutanese architecture depends on how the country chooses to navigate these changes, and the fate of its unique style remains a mystery waiting to be revealed. Bhutan, known for its spiritual richness, contrasts with the fact that it is one of the most economically modest countries in the world. This duality, however, is seen differently by the Bhutanese, who value inner harmony and spiritual peace much more than material accumulation. The concept of gross national happiness is a reflection of this mentality, where collective well-being is prioritized to the detriment of consumerism and the incessant search for wealth. The curiosity about countries that embrace this vision is immense, as it challenges us to reevaluate what it means to be truly rich. Bhutan's material poverty does not prevent its population from being one of the most satisfied and balanced in the world. While many countries measure themselves by gross domestic product, Bhutan prefers to measure spiritual contentment and happiness. This differentiated focus means the country has a unique approach to development, focusing on mental health, the environment, and human connections. This country's curiosity invites us to think about how the search for happiness may be more related to our inner state than to the material goods we possess. However, material poverty is still a reality the country faces, especially in rural areas where access to basic services can be limited. Modernization has brought new challenges, with Bhutan trying to balance preserving its spiritual values with the need to improve infrastructure and quality of life. The dilemma between maintaining their traditions and facing economic challenges is constant. How can the country grow economically without sacrificing what makes it so unique? Bhutan's future appears to depend on its ability to continue to value spiritual wealth while addressing material issues in a sustainable way. Will the country be able to maintain this delicate balance, or will the pressure to align with the Western model end up prevailing? The answer to that question is still open, but one thing is certain: Bhutan will continue to be a rare example of how spirituality can shape a nation's destiny. Bhutanese cuisine is a reflection of the country's simplicity and spiritual depth. Based on local and seasonal ingredients, it is known for its bold flavors and generous use of peppers. The national dish, Enigma, is a combination of peppers and cheese, an explosion of flavor that reflects the essence of Bhutan. Simple, but powerful. The curiosity about countries that maintain a cuisine so rooted in their traditions is great. And Bhutan teaches us that, sometimes, less is more when it comes to creating something memorable. The basic ingredients of Bhutanese cuisine, such as red rice, peppers, and cheese, are all local, making the food deeply connected to the land. The Bhutanese's relationship with food goes beyond nutrition. There is a spiritual component to every meal where food is seen as a gift from nature. Imagine living in a place where every dish served is a celebration of simplicity and gratitude. This country's curiosity makes us reflect on how we can reconnect with the food we consume, valuing each ingredient for what it offers. Despite its simplicity, Bhutanese cuisine is rich in flavors and textures. The use of peppers, in particular, is a hallmark of the country's cuisine, adding a heat that complements Bhutan's cold, mountainous landscape. But Bhutanese cuisine isn't just about heat. There is a depth to its flavors that reveals the complexity of the country's culture. However, as tourism grows and new influences arrive, will traditional cuisine be able to maintain its authenticity? The future of Bhutanese cuisine looks promising, but like many other aspects of the country's culture, it is at a point of transition. With increasing global connectivity, new food trends are coming to Bhutan, challenging culinary traditions that have been passed down from generation to generation. Will the country be able to preserve the essence of its cuisine while adapting to global changes? This is a mystery that only time can solve. Environmental education in Bhutan is more than just a classroom topic. It is a philosophy of life. From an early age, Bhutanese children are taught to respect and protect the environment, seeing nature as a sacred element that needs to be preserved. This focus on environmental education is part of the country's commitment to sustainability and its search for a balance between progress and preservation. The curiosity about countries that put nature at the center of their education is inspiring, and Bhutan shows us how it is possible to build a more conscious and responsible society. In schools, environmental education programs are integrated into the curriculum in an organic way, where students learn about biodiversity, sustainable practices, and the human impact on the environment. Bhutan, being one of the few carbon-negative countries in the world, takes its commitment to caring for nature seriously. Imagine growing up in a place where respect for the earth is not just an idea, but a daily practice. This country's curiosity makes us reflect on how education can be a catalyst for real and lasting changes in human behavior in relation to the planet. Environmental awareness in Bhutan goes beyond schools. The population in general is involved in conservation activities, from protecting forests to preserving endangered species. This community engagement is a natural extension of environmental education, creating a society that understands the value of nature in all aspects of life. However, with increasing urbanization and the arrival of new influences, the country faces the challenge of maintaining this mindset while moving towards modernity. The future of environmental education in Bhutan looks promising, but the question remains: will the country be able to maintain its commitment to sustainability in an increasingly globalized world? The answer to this question will depend on how the next generations embrace this philosophy of life and adapt to new realities without sacrificing what makes Bhutan a rare example of harmony between man and nature. In Bhutan, the people are known as Drukpas, or Dragon People, a title that evokes mysticism and spiritual strength. The figure of the dragon is deeply rooted in Bhutanese culture, symbolizing protection, power, and wisdom. The country's name, Druk Yul, means Land of the Dragon, and this symbolism permeates every aspect of Bhutanese life, from architecture to spiritual rituals. Curiosity about countries that adopt such powerful symbolism is constant, and Bhutan offers us an intriguing example of how national identity can be shaped by mythical and spiritual figures. The dragon is seen as the guardian of Bhutan, protecting the country from adversity and guiding its people in times of uncertainty. This belief is reflected in festivals and ceremonies that celebrate the dragon's presence as a protective force. Imagine living in a place where myth and reality meet, and where the people identify so deeply with a legendary creature. This country's curiosity leads us to reflect on how cultural symbols can shape the way people see themselves and their role in the world. Dragon symbolism is also present in the national flag of Bhutan, where a white dragon holds jewels, representing the country's wealth and security. This image is not just an emblem, but a reflection of the inner strength that Bhutan seeks to cultivate. The dragon is a constant reminder that although the country is small in size, its spiritual strength is immense. However, with the advancement of globalization, the question arises: will this symbolic connection with the dragon remain strong for generations to come? As Bhutan adapts to changes in the modern world, the identity of the Drukpas also evolves. The challenge is to keep the relationship with this powerful symbol alive, while the country faces the pressures of a constantly changing reality. Will the Bhutanese people be able to preserve their identity as the Dragon people? Or will this symbolism be diluted over time? The fate of this spiritual heritage is in the hands of future generations, who will decide how to honor the dragon's legacy in a rapidly changing world. Bhutanese culture, long preserved in isolation, begins to expand and spread on the international scene as the country opens up to the modern world. Although Bhutan has kept its traditions intact for centuries, globalization and growing interest in tourism have brought new visibility to the local culture. There is great curiosity about countries that preserve their essence while adapting to the modern world. And Bhutan offers us a fascinating reflection on how a rich culture can spread without losing its roots. International media has played a significant role in this diffusion. Films, documentaries, and books that highlight Bhutan's spirituality, festivals, and unique landscape are increasingly attracting global attention. The concept of gross national happiness, in particular, has become a point of interest for many who seek an alternative to the consumerism and materialism prevalent in other cultures. Imagine a small nation, but with a growing cultural influence on the world, offering new ways of thinking about life and well-being. This country's curiosity leads us to reflect on the power of culture in shaping global perceptions. However, with this diffusion also comes the risk of losing authenticity. As Bhutan becomes more accessible, the challenge arises of maintaining its genuine traditions and preventing them from being commercialized to meet the expectations of foreign visitors. Will Bhutanese culture be able to keep its essence intact while adapting to the demands of a global audience? This is an issue that many countries face, but Bhutan, with its careful approach, offers an example of how to balance this transition. The future of Bhutanese culture in the modern world looks promising, but how it will be preserved and shared with the world is still being defined. Will Bhutan be able to continue to spread its culture without sacrificing its authenticity? This is a mystery that only time can reveal as the country navigates these new global waters. Although Bhutan is known for its serenity and spirituality, the country's government has also made decisions that have generated controversy over the years. One of the most controversial was the expulsion of a significant portion of the Nepalese population in the 1990s, a move that drew international criticism. Bhutan, which has always been seen as a haven of peace and harmony, has faced complex issues involving human rights and cultural diversity. The curiosity about countries trying to balance their identity with issues of inclusion is evident, and Bhutan shows us how even nations with strong spiritual roots face political challenges. The government's decision to protect Bhutanese culture resulted in a strict nationality policy where those who were not considered pure Bhutanese were expelled or marginalized. This action raised questions about the limit between cultural preservation and exclusion. Imagine living in a country that values its heritage so much that it goes so far as to exclude groups that could dilute that identity. This country's curiosity makes us reflect on the extent to which it is acceptable to protect a culture at the expense of inclusion. Furthermore, the government of Bhutan has also faced criticism for its restrictive policies regarding freedom of expression. Although the country has a democratic monarchy, many still question the extent to which citizens can express their opinions freely. Does this search for internal harmony and stability come at the cost of personal freedom? Curiosity about how the country navigates these political waters leads us to question the limits between cultural security and individual freedoms. Despite the controversies, the Bhutanese government continues to balance its policies with the aim of maintaining peace and happiness for its people. But with the advancement of globalization and increasing international pressure for human rights, Bhutan will have to face complex issues in the coming years. The future of these policies and the way the country deals with these controversies will determine the path Bhutan takes in its quest to preserve its essence without compromising universal values. Bhutanese youth are emerging as a vital force in the country's future, challenging traditions while also seeking to preserve their cultural identity. Young people in Bhutan have grown up in an era of transition, where modernity and spiritual traditions live side by side. For many, globalization has brought new opportunities, but it has also raised questions about what it means to be Bhutanese in a rapidly changing world. Curiosity is high about countries where youth play a crucial role in shaping the future, and Bhutan is a fascinating example of how a new generation is shaping the destiny of a nation. Bhutan's youth face a unique dilemma: embrace the modern world or remain true to the traditions that define their culture. Many young people are choosing to balance both, using technology to explore new opportunities while maintaining respect for spiritual and family practices. Imagine living in a place where the choices you make are not just personal, but have the power to shape the future of an entire country. This country's curiosity makes us reflect on the role of new generations in cultural preservation. With the growth of the internet and social media, young Bhutanese people are more connected to the world than ever, and this has led to an awakening of new ideas and perspectives. Youth are beginning to question some aspects of traditions, but without losing sight of what makes Bhutan a unique place. Can they maintain this delicate balance between innovation and tradition as the modern world continues to expand? This is a central issue for the future of the country. Bhutan's future is largely in the hands of its youth. They are responsible for deciding how far the country should advance and what should be preserved. Can Bhutanese youth protect the essence of what it means to be Bhutanese while adapting to a rapidly changing world? The country's destiny is inextricably linked to the decisions of this generation, and Bhutan's future remains full of potential and uncertainty. Bhutan, long isolated from the digital world, is undergoing a silent revolution with the arrival of technology. Since the introduction of the Internet in 1999, the country has slowly embraced the modern world, bringing new opportunities and challenges to its population. Technology is transforming the daily lives of Bhutanese people, especially young people, who are increasingly connected to the rest of the world. The curiosity about countries that make this transition cautiously is fascinating, and Bhutan is an example of how a nation can integrate modernity without sacrificing its cultural essence. The internet and smartphones have opened new doors for Bhutan, allowing its citizens access to global information and economic opportunities that were previously unthinkable. However, this connectivity has also raised concerns about the impact of modernity on Bhutanese culture. Imagine living in a place where every new technology introduced is seen as both a tool for progress and a possible threat to cultural identity. This country's curiosity makes us reflect on how the balance between digital and traditional can be achieved. Although Bhutan is embracing technology, the country has been cautious in ensuring that digital progress does not compromise its sustainability and spiritual values. The government closely monitors the impact of technology, encouraging responsible use and preservation of local culture. The challenge is great: how to keep a nation connected and at the same time protect its unique identity. This question is at the heart of Bhutan's technological journey, which is following a path distinct from other nations that have quickly embraced digital globalization. Bhutan's digital future is just beginning, and how the country continues to deal with technological influences will determine the course of its modernization. Will Bhutan be able to maintain its cultural integrity in an increasingly digitalized world, or will technology end up transforming the country's essence? The path ahead is uncertain, but Bhutan offers a valuable lesson in how to move forward cautiously without losing sight of your roots. In the midst of a world marked by conflicts and geopolitical tensions, Bhutan stands out as a haven of peace. Maintaining a neutral position in relation to major international disputes, the country has focused on cultivating diplomatic relations based on cooperation and mutual respect. Bhutan does not have a robust army, nor does it seek global influence, preferring to maintain a low profile on the international stage. There is great curiosity about countries adopting this policy of neutrality in such a polarized world, and Bhutan offers us a rare example of how peaceful diplomacy can be a powerful force. Bhutan, surrounded by giants such as China and India, has managed to maintain its sovereignty and independence without becoming involved in major military or political alliances. The country chooses to focus on its own internal stability, valuing peace and harmony as part of its governance philosophy. Imagine a country that, instead of seeking power and influence, chooses peace as its greatest asset. This country's curiosity makes us reflect on how peace can be a viable path in an increasingly divided world. Despite its neutrality, Bhutan maintains diplomatic relations with several nations, cultivating ties with countries that share its vision of peace and sustainability. Bhutan's neutrality allows it to be seen as a peaceful mediator, capable of building bridges rather than walls. However, global pressure for strategic alliances is constant, and the country will have to deal with these demands as the international scenario evolves. Can Bhutan maintain its peaceful stance in a changing world? Bhutan's future as a haven of peace depends on its ability to continue to navigate the turbulent waters of global politics without compromising its values. The country has been a model for how neutrality and peaceful diplomacy can work, but the path forward is uncertain. Will Bhutan be able to maintain this unique position, or will external forces ultimately influence its domestic politics? Bhutan's fate on the global stage is an enigma that still awaits answers. Tourism in Bhutan is carefully managed to ensure that economic development does not compromise the country's cultural and environmental integrity. Unlike many nations that seek to attract as many visitors as possible, Bhutan takes a high-value, low-impact approach to tourism. This model not only preserves the country's traditions and natural beauty, but also ensures that tourism contributes significantly to the local economy. Curiosity about countries implementing sustainable tourism practices is high, and Bhutan stands out as an exemplary example of how to balance preservation and growth. Bhutan's tourism policy requires visitors to pay a daily fee that covers accommodation, food, transportation, and a sustainable tourism tax. This system ensures that the number of tourists is maintained at levels that do not overload the country's natural or cultural resources. Imagine traveling to a destination where each visit is designed to benefit the local community and protect the environment. This country's curiosity leads us to reflect on how tourism can be a force for good, promoting conservation and sustainable development. Furthermore, tourism in Bhutan is closely linked to the preservation of its traditions and festivals. Visitors have the opportunity to experience rich Bhutanese culture through religious ceremonies, traditional dances, and local crafts. This cultural engagement not only enriches the tourist experience, but also strengthens the pride and identity of the Bhutanese. However, with the country's increasing popularity as a tourist destination, the question arises, can Bhutan maintain its sustainable tourism model as global demand continues to grow? The future of tourism in Bhutan will depend on its ability to adapt to change without compromising its core values. Innovation and effective management will be essential to ensure that tourism continues to be a source of economic prosperity while protecting the country's cultural and natural heritage. Will Bhutan be able to expand its tourism sector in a sustainable manner, or will it face challenges that could threaten its delicate balance? The answer to this question will determine how tourism continues to shape Bhutan's destiny in the years to come. As Bhutan moves into the 21st century, it faces unique challenges as it seeks to balance tradition, modernity, and sustainability. The country, which for so long isolated itself from the world, now finds itself faced with choices that will shape its future. As a nation deeply connected to spirituality and nature, Bhutan has the difficult task of adapting to global pressures without losing its essence. Curiosity about countries preserving their roots while navigating an ever-changing world is fascinating. And Bhutan stands out as an example of how evolution can occur without sacrificing what is most valuable. The Bhutanese government and people have demonstrated an incredible ability to adapt, carefully embracing technology, sustainable tourism, and economic policies that value well-being over profit. However, with increasing globalization and external influences, the challenge of maintaining this harmony becomes even more complex. Will Bhutan continue to be a model of sustainability and happiness in a world increasingly driven by materialism? The answer to this question will define the path the country will take in the coming decades. Bhutan's future will also depend on its youth and how new generations will deal with the cultural legacy they have received. They will be the guardians of Bhutanese identity and will have the responsibility to decide how far the country should embrace the modern world without compromising its soul. This country's curiosity leads us to reflect on how Bhutan will continue to inspire the world with its unique approach to development, where the spiritual, cultural, and material are deeply intertwined. As Bhutan looks to the future, it carries with it the weight of its history and the promise to continue to be a beacon of balance and wisdom. Will the country be able to sustain its unique identity in a rapidly changing world? Bhutan's destiny in the 21st century is shrouded in mystery, but one thing is certain: Bhutan will continue to fascinate and inspire those seeking a different path on the global stage.
Hey explorers, if you love discovering the amazing curiosities and stories we share here on Exploring Nations, how about supporting the channel with just $1? This small gesture can make a big difference and is essential to keep this content going. Without your support, our journey might be cut short. And there's more. When you shop on Amazon, use our special link. It costs you nothing extra, plus you get an exclusive discount and it helps us out a lot. The links for donations and Amazon are pinned in the first comment. Don't let this adventure stop, we're counting on you. Subscribe to our channel, leave a like, and drop us a comment.